It's time for another edition of Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined, as always, by the head coach, Marcus Freeman. Coach, I know it did not go the way you guys wanted to this past Saturday. In your postgame presser, you said you had to evaluate everything. So I'm curious, a couple days removed, what have been your biggest takeaways and what's your assessment since the game?
Well, it comes down to a lack of execution. Sometimes you get so bogged down with the end result and winning and finishing games that you really lose sight of really what it takes to do that. And it's not just about finishing with us. It's been our lack of execution. So we have to coach better. We have to play better. We got to practice better, and then ultimately go perform better on Saturdays.
As the head coach, let me ask you then, because I've heard you talk about execution a lot in the postgame presser and your weekly press conference. How do you, as the head coach, ensure that execution goes up a level across the board?
I think it goes back to your preparation. I think it goes back to really the practice habits and, hey, are we executing exactly what we want to do, no matter what the result of the play is, good or bad, right? And then, you know, somebody else, it might be offense and we complete a ball, but hey, is the right tackle doing exactly what we want him to do, or is the backside wide receiver doing exactly the requirements of his position? And so we have to look at everything from a very individualized point of view and make sure we're executing no matter what the end result is.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside and come back to recap Notre Dame's game against Marshall after this on Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time to go inside the game between Notre Dame and Marshall. Coach, I still want to ask you first, before we get into the contest, first time taking the team out of the tunnel, what did it feel like to be the head coach running them out of the tunnel for the first time?
It was surreal, just like I thought it would be. What an amazing experience, adrenaline rush, and one that you'll never forget.
Offense started a little slow, but one guy I wanted to talk about was Jaden Thomas. Made a big catch for you on 3rd and 8. He's an exciting young player. Just when you watch him, what excites you most about his future with this team?
Yeah, I think you talk about a guy that's going to continue to get better. He redshirted last year. I think he had around 30 snaps versus Ohio State and had probably 50 this week. And he's a guy that is a really good route runner, big body, that will be a threat for us on the offensive side of the ball. But we have to continue to keep getting him reps in the game and you know, get him that experience that it takes to play at a high level.
Drive a little bit later, you had a nice chunk play to pick up some yards from Lorenzo Styles. Just that was a cool play we're going to get a chance to look at later in Irish Intel. What'd you like on that play that you saw from the offense to pick up some of those more chunk plays?
Yeah, it was ended up being a reverse. It was really based off a play we did the week before where Tyler kept the ball and it kind of happened just how we wanted. If we end up, you know, maybe sustaining a block, I think by Braden a little bit longer, that thing might still be running. And so that was a huge play for us. We wanted to find a way to get some big plays, be creative, and that was an example of that.
Marshall managed to score a touchdown and missed the extra point, so it's 6-0 at this point. Your offense came back, I thought, with a really nice drive, 5 plays, 56 yards. What about that drive is the kind of stuff you guys can replicate and do more of going forward?
Yeah, I think during that drive you see Tyler making a couple plays with his feet. I think Marshall jumped off sides, you get a 5-yard penalty, and then Mike Mayer does things that Michael Mayer does, and he gets the ball down to the 1-yard line, and Tyler's able to run it in. But I think it was the ability to use some tempo, the ability to have no negative yardage plays there, and stay, you know, on rhythm and on track that we want to do, and to put the ball in the end zone when it matters most.
What was the message in the locker room at halftime? What adjustments did you guys try to make as you got set for the second half?
My message to them was we got to start fast in the 3rd quarter. We got to come out the locker room in the first 4 minutes, make sure we start fast, and then we got to win the 4th. And ultimately, we end up having 2 turnovers in the second half of the game. There was another big, long drive that we didn't get them off the field and ultimately led to a defeat. But, you know, it's the ability to go back now and execute, right? Look at it and say, okay, where was the lack of execution in the second half that we have to make sure that we improve that?
You did have one good drive there in the second half, a sustained drive that led to that touchdown you had, similar to what we talked about earlier. Just the things you saw on that drive, what are you trying to do more of that to translate going forward into this next week against Cal?
You know, I think it's the ability to just try to take advantage of what you're seeing defensively. You know, make good decisions. You know, we try to vary our tempo and then ultimately get the ball into the hands of the guys that make plays. You know, another big catch by Michael Mayer. You know, when we're rolling out, we throw the ball to Kevin Bauman, and he makes a big play and gets the ball down there, and then we score as the first play in the fourth quarter. So again, it's the ability to stay on track, not have negative yardage plays, but also get the ball into the hands of those guys that can make plays.
I want to ask you about defense, just because we're 2 weeks into the year and you don't have a takeaway yet. I know this is a defense that has a ton of skill on that side. I think everyone assumed you'd have a couple takeaways by now. When you've watched the film, what are you seeing, and where can you guys make the changes to start generating some more turnovers on the defensive side of the ball?
I think it goes back to, we got to emphasize it more in practice, right? It has to be something at the forefront of their minds when they have a chance to get the ball out, when they see the ball, that they're knocking it out. And it's a relentless pursuit from guys retracing, trying to get to the ball carrier to be in a position to get that ball out. And the ones where you can force the ball out and truly, create a takeaway by creating a forced fumble, those are the ones that we got to improve at.
I want to ask about what it's like after a game like this. In the locker room, I'm sure it's not a lot of happy faces, but there's still a lot of season left. So how important is your role as the head coach, and how important is the leadership on this team to still look at the next 10 games and see there's a lot of opportunity in front of us?
Yeah, I think that you can't look at it even in that realm of 10 games. You got to look at it and say, okay, hey, where are we at right now? And it's not easy to have that conversation with this team who's not used to losing. As I told them, this is where we'll need our leadership the most right now. From your head coach, from your coaches, from your leaders on your team, we'll need your leadership now more than ever, because that's, to me, defines the culture of your program, is when things are tough, right? And when things aren't going as well, let's see who we really are deep down. And so we'll need leadership, starting from me to every coach, to every leader that we have on our team, to make sure we take a deep dive and look at ourselves, right? And how we can improve as individuals. And that gives us a chance to win those games. Let's not worry so much about the result of the games, the next 10 games, as much as, okay, what do we have to do to earn that result that we want?
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside and come back with more on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. So JD, I know you guys didn't get the result you wanted this past weekend. Now that it's been a couple of days, just what's the team's focus been? How you guys been trying to bounce back as you get ready for Cal?
It's not necessarily just starters, but it's special teams, it's scout team. It goes all levels from the top to the bottom. And so just going from there and making sure that every single person is doing their job.
I want to go off the field a little bit with you now and take a step back to when you decided to come to Notre Dame. I know this is a place that's special to you, but when you reflect on your time here, just what's the impact been that Notre Dame has had on you?
It's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, just because I think it's such a holistic experience. Like, it's not just the football side, it's not just the school side, it's the community side. It's that I have so many friends that I met in Duncan Hall that I'm still friends with today and I go hang out with. And even through the ups, the downs, I mean, the wins, the losses, like, they're there for me and they're there for me, even if it's not talking football, it's just talking life. And so just being able to have that holistic approach to a school is very unique nowadays, especially being a student athlete.
One of the interesting things I think in the summer was the fact that you got to go to Omaha and watch the baseball team who had that awesome run. Your brother, of course, highly featured in that. He's a pitcher for the team. Just to get a chance to watch him perform on that stage and make the trip out there. Tell me a little bit about how special that experience was for you and your family.
Going to Omaha, and I mean, it started even before that. Going to the Tennessee game was such a cool experience. Me, Isaiah Foskey, Alex Ahrensberger, Jack Kaiser, we all got in the car for the Tennessee game and drove the 7 or 8 hours and got there for like the 6th inning and stayed there. And I mean, it was just awesome. Just being able to see them take down the team that's supposed to be the best team in all America in so long, like, it's a cool experience.
I know you've done a lot to give back to the local community here in South Bend. Just why have you done that, and what's so important about that to you?
Giving back to the community is just one of the, biggest things that I can do, especially just having a platform. Even though it may not be the biggest platform, but just being able to make a smile in someone's day or being able to just impact them in any way is super important to me. And whether it's going with Coach Freeman and a couple of guys to the Ronald McDonald House and visiting, or even just this past Marshall game, we had an Uplifting Athletes Rare Disease tailgate where we invited some community members from the local area to come to the game, have a tailgate, and so that we had a bunch of guys come out and introduce themselves to the rare disease patients, to their families, and take this moment to better themselves and just better this community.
I was going to follow up with that. I know things have not gone the right way. You guys wanted the first 2 weeks in the football field, but you just pointed that out. Is that really important to have that perspective that even if you're not playing your best football, there's a lot more that's going on in life?
Most definitely. And I think there's these people that are going through so much bigger struggles than winning or losing a football game. And I think there are just bigger things in life than just football. And so whether it is just being able to touch someone's heart or just be able to put a smile or just give them our gloves after the game and just being able to do those little acts of kindness that maybe might make their week, might make their day, might just make their hour, like it can make a difference.
JD, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Of course, thank you.
When we come back, we'll sit down with the second member of the Irish football team. So Chris, I know you guys didn't get the result you wanted this past weekend. Now that it's been a couple of days, just what's the team's mindset been like and what's the focus been as you guys get set to go into the next week?
Yeah, our mindset going into this week is just making sure everyone does their own job. There's 11 players on the field and everyone has to do their 1/11th. So the biggest thing that Coach Freeman is, pushed out to us, just doing your job and executing whatever you have to do on the field.
If time moves fast in college athletics. I feel like it was just a couple of years ago when you were the new freshman. Now you're kind of one of the leaders in the running back room. So what's your role amongst the running backs to try to make the improvements you guys have to make going forward?
Yeah, at this point of the season, I just have to make sure that, everyone is being held accountable. I understand the standard and the examples that I have to set for the rest of the people in the room. So, just having clear communication with the coaches and then, just bringing whatever messages they have to the players is what I'm doing right now.
What's something you guys can do on offense? You said 1/11th is a really interesting way to put it, but the whole offense, when you come to 11/11ths, what are you guys doing to try to generate maybe some more explosive plays on offense and put some more points on the scoreboard?
Yeah, the biggest thing for us is, just making sure that the best players on the field get the ball as much as we can. We understand that, we all have clear trust, from the coaches to the players to even Coach Freeman. Just making sure that everyone does their job. And like I said before, you just have to do your 1/11th.
Something I know that's important to you and a lot of guys on the team is finding a way to give back to the local community. What have you done to do that during your time here at Notre Dame?
Yeah, just recently I was at a food drive with some of my teammates. We were packaging some meals for, kids that, don't really have that many meals when they get home. So, just being able to affect the community in a different way. Get your face out there and getting out there in the community and helping in any way I can is something that I want to do. So, any opportunity I get to help the community is something I'm going to take advantage of.
When you do that, does it put in perspective football a little bit? I know things didn't go the way you guys wanted the last couple of weeks, but then when you go into the community and you're helping someone get food on the table that might not have that opportunity otherwise, does it help put the losses in perspective sometimes?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's bigger than football. I understand that I represent a really great university and a really great team. There's a lot of people that came before me and a lot of great people that will come after. So,
last thing, let's go back to football a little bit. There's still 10 games left. There's a lot of time for you guys. What's the focus and what's success going to look like for this team this year?
For one, I would say it's just going to be us letting loose, having fun. But at the end of the day, like I said before, you have to do your job. You have to do your 1/11th. So I would say it's going to be based on discipline and, just letting loose. We've been playing this game for a really long time, and we're obviously really good at it. That's why we're here. So, just letting loose and doing what we do.
Awesome, Chris. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. No problem.
When we come back, we'll go inside the play with Irish Intel, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's Irish Intel segment. Coach, we get to go inside the play. This is the touchdown that Tyler Buckner runs in the second quarter. Goal line pretty close to the end, so just talk me through what you guys are looking at and trying to set up on this play.
Well, it's just your typical zone read based off that end. So Tyler's reading the end here, the end man on line of scrimmage. If he chases after Audric and tries to tackle what we call the dive, Tyler will pull it. And then we bring Mayer around to block the first defender. If they have an extra guy for the quarterback, Mayer will block him. So Tyler just made a great read. Really would probably prefer him cut inside of Mayer, but listen, he knew he can outrun him and he scored. That's all that matters.
So, Coach, this is a really nice play, I think, in the second quarter. Talk me through the play design here. It's going to be an end around that ends up in the hands of Lorenzo Styles.
Yeah, well, it's actually a compliment off the play we looked at last week, where Tyler kept the ball. They brought both tight ends around to kick out the end man on the line of scrimmage. With this one, we wanted to look the exact same, but then get it to Lorenzo on the reverse, and it ended up turning into a big play. And, we almost took it even farther. Just got to get a little bit longer block right there by Braden, and this thing might still be running. But that was a huge play for our offense to start the drive.
All right, Coach, this is late in the third quarter. We're so used to seeing Michael Mayer catch balls over the middle. This time he's going to be open down the sideline. So talk me through how he gets open on this play.
Yeah, we were looking for zone coverage here, and you end up getting the zone coverage that you're looking for. And And again, anytime you got a chance to throw the ball to 87 and he's open like this, we're going to get the ball to him. I think he was a little bit winded on that play because usually he would cut it inside and try to break a tackle, but he came out after this play, and I know he was breathing pretty hard, but this was a huge series for him.
We've seen him catch so many balls over the middle. He's obviously great in run blocking too, but now you're seeing him even get out to the wide side of the field. Just how dynamic is Michael Mayer?
I mean, he's special, and he can do a lot of things really well in terms of catching the ball over the middle, which you saw earlier in the game. He gets hit and catches the ball in traffic, and then here, obviously up the sideline, but he also is doing a great job excelling as a blocker, and so that's what you're looking for in a dynamic NFL tight end.
Coach, this is now early in the fourth quarter. You guys are going to actually get some pressure here and generate a sack. I'm curious, what do you guys do well here that you guys can take forward for the rest of the year?
Well, we wanted to try to give our normal third and long disguise where we're showing two safeties. Are we playing man? Are we playing zone? And we ended up bringing 6 guys here and playing zone coverage behind it. Usually a lot of times when you bring 6 guys, you're playing some type of man, but we wanted to play some zone coverage here, which made the quarterback hold the ball for an extra second, and then by that time our pressure got home. But it was a great disguise. Ramon comes up the middle unblocked, gets in the way enough. It doesn't make the sack, but Justin will take credit for it.
Thanks, Coach. When we come back, we'll have more on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. It's time now to wrap up this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com. Coach, tough news this week. Tyler Buckner, unfortunately, now out for the year with an injury. So Drew Pyne steps in as your starter. Was your backup. What do you expect from him as he gets this start getting ready for Cal?
Yeah, I don't expect anything different out of who Drew Pyne is and his preparation. He's always prepared like a starter, and that's the one thing with Drew is that he didn't take the news of him not being named a starter great like any competitor would. He understood that he can lead this football team, and at some point during this season, as I told him in my office, at some point, man, he's going to be called upon to lead this team. And who knew it would be after week 2, but it's here. And so I had the utmost confidence in him because he doesn't have to change the way he prepares. He always prepared like he's a starter, and I'm excited for him with this opportunity.
Another good challenge this week. You've got a Cal team coming to town. As you've gotten ready to prepare for them, what are the biggest challenges they pose to your team?
Yeah, a 2-0 Cal team that is talented. Obviously, the quarterback, we saw him last year when he was at Purdue, and he's a very precise thrower, makes good decisions. We're going to be one of the most talented quarterbacks we face. And so it's going to be a huge challenge for our defense to make sure we're mixing up looks and we're getting pressure on that quarterback to make him uncomfortable. And that's the one thing going back to looking at last year is that when he was uncomfortable because of the pressure we got on him, we had more success defensively. And offensively, we're going to have to really, face a team that's very aggressive, that does some different looks in terms of 3 down, some 4 down, different coverage looks. They got a talented safety, and they have a huge nose guard that is very stout in the middle. And so that's going to be us preparing for our opponent. But I think the mindset of this team this week has to be it's about us, and it's about our preparation and our execution. Because if we do that, if we execute the way we're supposed to and do the things we're supposed to do as Notre Dame football team, I have a strong conviction we'll have success.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
That does it for this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Football, presented by TireRack.com.